Hello, all. Welcome to my talk on the rise of zombie Scrum. I have an interactive session today, so I'm going to share. I'm going to share my screen, okay? But the purpose of me sharing the screen is for those that are on the recording watching it later. I would like everybody here to connect to the mural. So in the chat, hello, Sandra. In the chat, there is a link to mural. Hi. And I would like you to connect to that. I can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 or 4 people have already connected. I'm going to ask you some questions during this session, and I'm going to ask you to add things to the mural. I'm going to validate just for a second that the technology is working. So I'm going to switch to my shared screen. Okay, I'll put myself down the bottom. There I am. Can somebody validate that you can see the whole screen and that everything seems to be working? I just want to make sure that you can see it. So I'll watch for something in the chat saying that you can't see it as I carry on, but hopefully you can. So the thing, there we go, is, and it's the right way around because it's, yes, perfect. Thank you, Sandra. It's the opposite way around for me. So we will see how it goes. I can see some pointers coming in. Mural and you, everything is awesome. So I'd like to introduce myself first, just because then you know where I'm coming from. My name's Martin Hinshelwood. I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. Have been for about 11 years. I'm a Pro Kanban trainer. Have been since Pro Kanban started its existence about 8 months ago. So I've been doing that. And I have been a Microsoft MVP for the last 13 and a bit years. I think nearly 14 years. My discipline as an MVP is DevOps. So it used to be application lifecycle management, and then it went through a bunch of transitions, but DevOps is my thing. So I work a lot with the Azure DevOps teams at Microsoft. My background is that I spend quite a lot of time jumping between 2 locations. I have my wife is from Mexico, so I spend some time in Mexico. Just now, I am in Scotland. And you might have heard that the greater country that I live in is kind of committing a little bit of suicide at the moment. So I thought I would share this with you. I find it quite amusing, if not, while you're in it. I'm sure you guys find it amusing. So that will hopefully have given you a little bit of time to get connected to the mural. I can see that we have 13 visitors in the mural. So I'm going to get started just explaining the background of what I'm talking about with this zombie Scrum thing. So there are a number of things that cause this idea of zombie Scrum. I mean, the tagline I had is Agile is dead, right? You hear a lot of people talking about, oh, Agile is dead, this and that. Scrum and Agile are really just mindsets. I know that's easy to say and it's difficult to explain, so I'm going to try a little bit here. I'm just going to minimize this. I'm looking at myself here in reverse. So I'm going to bring the screen across, and then I'm not looking at myself in reverse, and that's a little bit easier because my brain was having difficulty. So let me hide everybody's cursor as well. Hide non-facilitator cursors. There we go. And then we won't see. Oh, somebody's decided to create a post-it. I will delete that just now. They will have to let go of it. If you could let go of the post-it by clicking off it, thank you very much. Oh, I think it is visiting sheep. Thank you very much. Let me prevent that by just quickly summoning everybody and taking control. Now everybody's looking at the same thing as me, and you won't be able to mess around with that for a moment. I know Mural's a new thing. I will explain it in a moment once we get to the first interactive piece, which is, I think, yep, just below this. But agility, where was I? Yes, agility is not the purpose of Scrum. It is not the purpose of Agile mindset, right? It's a tool to help our business evolve and change more quickly. Okay, so we're supporting that business. If you're engineers, you're directly supporting it, and we need to be able to do that. But there are a number of things that are causing this. You could put zombie agile, zombie scrum, zombie whatever you call the process that you're doing at the moment. And the first symptom that I see a lot is this idea that our people doing the work, our organization, don't really care that much about the work, don't really care that much about the product or our users. We're maybe just there for the paycheck, and there's not really that beating heart of our product. You know, what is the cadence of delivery? Are we delighting our users? Are we driving that? So that's the first, like that's one of the big things that I see. If your developers working on the product don't understand how their work today, the work they're doing just now, or the work you're doing just now, contributes to the overall vision and strategy of the product and benefits our users, then we're not able to put our heart in it because we have no empathy. We don't care, right? So that's the first big symptom. The second one is, I think, horrendous, and that's not having a working product, right? One of the key pieces of agility is that we learn how to do things more by doing it than by talking about it, and that we should be creating. The Agile Manifesto says a few weeks to a few months, right, for creating working software, something that's usable and works. The Scrum Guide specifies that it should be no more than 4 weeks, right? So if you don't have a working product that you would be happy to ship to your users at the end of every iteration, that's not having working product, right? If we do 3 sprints and then we have a working product, that's really not good enough. That's not Scrum. We're then doing a 6-week. If we're doing 2-week sprints and we have a working product every 3 sprints, then that would be us doing something more like 6-week sprints than 2-week sprints. Okay, so be very, very, very mindful of that. The other symptom that I see is not focusing on the continuous improvement, right? There's a very I guess it's a complicated word, empiricism, that is used a lot in the Agile space. Scrum is an empirical process control system. That's what it's designed to create. But empiricism is this weird word that not many people understand. It's really this idea of inspect and adapt. We need to look at what's going on, right? We need to be able to see stuff, so there needs to be transparency. We can see what's going on, and then we can change what we're doing based on that, and then see again, review how that change impacted on our ability to do stuff. So that's that continuous improvement. Let's do every sprint a little bit better. There's a phrase that they use in the US. They call it the Boy Scout rule, which there's a rule in the Boy Scouts, which is an organization in the US for kids, and they go camping and they collect merit badges and various different things. But in the Scouts, if you go to a campsite and your campsite is dirty when you arrive, you know, there's trash, whatever it is, you are supposed to leave that campsite a little bit better than you left it before, right? Continuous improvement of the world around you. And that's true for engineers as well. If we're writing more code, we should be improving what it is that we're working on, not leaving it in a greater mess than we arrived, or even what we think is the same mess as when we arrived, almost always improving. And even our organizational processes, right? Are we always changing and improving them based on what we discover and encounter? So that's symptom number 2, no drive to, sorry, symptom number 3, no drive to improve. And the fourth one, I'm going to bring back that screen. Oh, don't do that. That's in reverse, just because now I can see the chat. A funny idea to get the audience to be more engaged. Well, we'll see if it's a funny idea. It might be an awesome idea, or it might be a complete car crash. That is the beauty of an experiment, right? I'm going to continuously improve this process. I'm going to see what works and what doesn't. So thank you, Christianas. Hopefully this will be exciting for you. You can give me some feedback at the end of what worked and what didn't. And then I can see for the next session I have, which I'm speaking at a conference next week, maybe I'll do it a little bit differently. Maybe I'll do it the same. We'll see. Maybe I'll not do it at all, right? I'll do something completely different. So the fourth entry is no autonomy or ownership. You as the development team need to own the process. It needs to be your process that you own, that you're changing. Otherwise, you have no investment in that story. There's a comment that we commonly use in the Agile world is people own their own commitments more than they do somebody else's commitment on their behalf, right? So if your project manager commits to the business to do X, Y, and Z and tells you as a developer to do X, Y, and Z, you're like, well, it's not really any skin off my nose if that fails, if we don't do X, Y, and Z, because the project manager made that commitment and it's his problem if we don't achieve it. Whereas if we make commitments to ourselves and to each other, we're more likely to do it. Same reason if you want to give up smoking, you should tell all your friends you're giving up smoking. That little bit of pressure, self-pressure from your peers will help you do a little bit better at that. Well, at least that's what I hear. It worked for me. So no beating heart, no working product, no drive to improve, and no autonomy and no ownership of the system, of the processes, of the work, of the product, whatever it is. It seems to be a little bit of an epidemic. So I'd like to do, Christianis, I'd like to do our first little interactive part of this activity. I have a board here where I'm going to ask you to add some questions. I will not release you yet, although we might have a couple more people. So there's 15 people now. What I'd like you to do is add some questions that you would like me to answer. In order to add a post-it, right, you can go and take one of these existing post-its here, right, and double click on it, and then you'll be able to write directly on it. You are able to go over onto the left here, pop open this panel, and just drag a post-it on and make it any size you like, okay? And in theory, if you double click anywhere, which it's not working for me because I've got this on lockdown, but if you double click anywhere, it should just add a post-it. Okay, so that should work. So I'm going to release everybody, okay? And then summon you. Make sure you're all looking at the same thing as me. There we go. I've got 11 people looking at the same page. What are your questions around Scrum, Agile, and why it's not effective for you? Right? What are the questions that you would like me to answer? As we go through the class, the session, I'd like you to be able to go and add additional questions here as they come up. And I'm going to circle back around and come back up at the end to this questions board. So please feel free to add any questions here just now that you would like me to answer. I'm going to give you let's give you 1 minute to add questions to the board. I'll keep talking so that those that are watching the recording Don't get bored of just seeing people typing away. Oh, that is a massive post-it. So probably a good idea if we make that a little bit smaller. Yep, I see. I grabbed it. There we go. It's now smaller. That is a very strange size post-it in color, but there we go. So I brought it on. There we go. If you double click to create a post-it near a post-it of a similar size, shape, and color, it will create a post-it that's very similar to it. Okay. What are some good arguments for having ownership and autonomy? I am going to hopefully answer that as we go. I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger so we can all read it. Some developers are extremely critical about both Scrum and Agile. I agree. Saying it's just for project managers. Okay, what are the benefits for devs? Right. You know, the whole thing, Agile and Scrum was developed by developers for developers. There weren't any project managers in the story for creating either Scrum or the Agile Manifesto. So I'll hopefully be able to answer that a little bit, and if not, when we circle back around, I will definitely hit that. How many team members to speak and actively think at planning? Cool. How did we go from people over process to safe, scaled Agile for the enterprise? That seems like a bit of a loaded question. I will say now that SAFe is in the Scaled Agile framework is in no way Agile. It's a complicated bureaucratic process. It doesn't help any organization get to agility. It helps them use Agile names, but not necessarily change anything. That's my opinion. I have many blog posts and LinkedIn posts on the topic. One is up just now if you want to go read it. I have a quote there from the CIO of the US Air Force that says that he and across the entire Department of Defense in the US highly discouraged the use of large prescriptive frameworks like SAFe. And he also comments that there are no successful commercial software organizations that use SAFe. They have all created their own process, i.e. people over process is what works. So that's definitely a very good question. I like that one, but I'm going to turn it gray because I think I've kind of answered that. So I'm going to make that gray to kind of say we've had a little conversation around that. What are some good arguments for having ownership? I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. How do team members speak actively? Not only if you ask them to do so, you have to engage them. Right? Your team members only speak if they have something to say. My question to you would be, why don't they have something to say? Why don't they have an input into sprint planning? Is that because they don't feel they're going to be heard? Right? If nobody takes into account what they say, why should they continue to speak? Right? Why should they be part of that process? I might come back around. Companies are using SAFe. Yeah, just adopting it. I totally agree. SAFe is an easy sell for executive leadership in an organization. I want to install agility, so I do see that. So they see that a lot. So these are some good questions. I will highly recommend that you continue to add questions. Sandra is saying, I know it was by developers, but now it's the other way around. Only if you let it be, right? It's not meant to be, it's not designed to be, and it's not intended to be used as a project management tool. It is a product management tool, right? Definitely give it that. But it is designed to work a little bit differently. Yeah, so I will re-add the link into the, oh, thank you, Casper. That's perfect. I will let you guys figure that out and self-organize around there. See how that works? So I'm going to leave the questions board up, but I'm going to move on a little bit because I want to ask you another question that I have here. And this is, what sort of behavior in your organization do you believe will completely destroy your ability to have an empirical process? Like that's that inspect and adapt loop. Whether you're adapting on the product backlog, right? We're changing the requirements as we go. We're changing the processes as we go. We're changing the practices as we go, the tools, everything. Anything is up for change, right? In the Agile world. But in zombie Scrum, right, or zombie Agile, whatever you want to call it, it's very difficult to make those changes. So Sandra, I'm hoping you'll add a bunch of things here based on your comment that I know it was by developers, but now it's the other way around, right? What sort of behaviors would destroy empiricism in your organization, destroy the ability to inspect and adapt, destroy the ability for you to deliver software successfully? Oh, I might change that to destroy your ability to deliver. There we go. That's better. I prefer the wording of that. There we go. So I'm going to put. I'm probably going to put 3 minutes on the timer for you to start adding some items here. I'd like to see what are the things that you have seen in organizations that destroy their ability to deliver software. So that could be in designing it, in building it, or in getting it to your customers, right? So what's the first one? No way for developers to come up with initiatives. Yeah, that's a good one. Come on, some more. I want to see as many things as we can possibly get in here. I have one person. Who is it that's at the moment? It's only Sandra that's adding things on the board. Come on, guys, you can add things here. Everybody has right access to the board. Add some things. What's happening in your company, right? It's almost completely anonymous. Obviously, I could see that it was Sandra, but mostly it's going to be anonymous. It's because I went and looked it up. There we go. We've got whoever the fly is there, focusing only on bugs, forgetting new features. Yeah. I would add one that's the other way around as well, focusing only on new features and forgetting about bugs. I've seen that happen too. Giving up processes, lack of interest in trying out new things, no urgency, right? Okay. No ability to introduce, no tools, libraries. Yeah, these are definitely things. What else might inhibit your ability to deliver successfully? I'm going to put one, no control, control of the delivery pipeline, right? Do you control end to end your ability to deliver software? Can you go and deploy new servers to production? Can you deploy updates to production? Do you have a way that's totally automated? You can just do that as developers. That should be there. No drive to improve. There's a lot of misunderstanding terms like CD and CI. Right, continuous delivery means your every line of code that developers change and commit to master ends up in production. That's what continuous delivery means. Doesn't mean anything else. Right, it has to end up in production or you're not doing continuous delivery. Does every change that every engineer you have, is it integrated by the end of every day? Right, that's continuous integration. Is it continuously integrated? Right, if it's on a separate branch at the end of the day, it's not continuous integration. Right? Not doing retrospectives. Oh, I am going to group your little flame there because that looks like it adds some value there. Not doing retrospectives or not doing any changes after them, right? We hold a fake retrospective, we listen to what's happening, and then we just ignore whatever it is. Yeah. Oh, somebody's added a +1. That's cool. That works too. We're gonna do a little. We're gonna get some +1s. Okay. So we've got management being dead set on a specific technology. Holy crap. If anybody's read the Scrum guide, right, No one, not even the Scrum Master, tells the developers how to turn ideas into working software. No one, right? There should be no technology in the product backlog. There may be organizational standards, but hey, we can't, sometimes we have to work within those bounds. So dead backlog, just a bunch of things without priorities, giving up processes. So have a little read of the items that have come in. Giving up processes the way not improving it. Product disconnect, right? No feeling that things are done or owned by the team. No way for developers to come up with new initiatives. Yeah, Sandra, it sounds like, I think those ones were all yours. It sounds like that's going to have a real struggle. Unstable sprints. No joy. I love, that's one of my favorite ones. Sorry if you can hear the dog in the background. There's a postman at the door, so my dog's going mental. No joy, no drive to improve, no beating heart. Thank you. I did mention that one before. Lack of interest in trying new things. Okay. So I am going to ask which of these things do you see? I mean, obviously, you only added the things that you maybe have done or have encountered directly. Which of these other things that you didn't think of have you seen in your organization? I'm going to start a voting session, and I'm going to give, let's do 4 votes each. What are the top? Well, maybe that's too many. Top 3. Let's do top 3 items. Yes, sorry, we're definitely going to do 20 seconds is not enough. I will probably put at least a minute on there, but I'm going to give everybody in the mural 3 votes. So I'm going to begin voting. You click a card to add a vote, and you shift click to remove a vote. Thank you, Mac users, for that unnecessary keyboard action. So I see there are 19 people in the session now voting. I'll be able to see as the votes drop off. You can see here in the recording. Some people have put their real name. Some people are just visiting horse, visiting fish, visiting animals. That's okay. I am not worried. I am just checking to make sure that we have who's voted for what. 3 people have voted. I bet you, Sandra, did you vote for all of yours, or did you see any other ones? No joy, I hope, is popular. That should be important. But quite often it's left behind. Empathy is left out of the story. Oh, we should all just be professionals. Being professional doesn't mean you're not human. It doesn't mean you're a robot, right? So there's still 15 people with votes left. Out of the total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people have completely voted. I'm going to give it probably another 30 seconds. So get your votes in if you haven't already. 13 people still with votes left. Some people are not voting at all. That's okay too. Don't worry. I will. This is like doing your popcorn in the microwave. I'm waiting for the pops to stop. And I can see that the pops are very low. I'm probably going to give it another few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. And then if you haven't voted, I'm sorry, but you weren't fast enough. And we have to move on. Where are we? We've got about 16 minutes left in the session. Okay, I'm going to end the voting session. Let's see what we got. Whoa, no joy. Top of the list, no joy. Do unhappy people who have no joy in their work do good work? No, they don't. They do terrible work. We've got to keep people happy. Not doing retrospectives, that's 5. Unstable sprints, dead backlogs seem very popular. Yeah, not. How can we possibly build the right thing if we don't have good backlogs? How can we deliver things that work at the end of the sprint if we have unstable sprints? How can we continuously improve if we have no retrospectives, right? And how can we have heart if we have no joy, right? So the top things there are very closely related to those symptoms I added at the top. And if you look down the list, you can see, well, somebody voted for the box surrounding it. That's okay. These mistakes happen, but also no urgency. not feeling that things are owned by the team, and then there's lots of one votes at the end. So it seems like there's some very interesting voting going on there, and I'm quite happy that no joy is at the top. Well, I'm not happy that no joy is at the top of that list, but I feel vindicated that no joy is at the top of that list. Okay. So what I want to figure out is why there are so many of these zombie implementations, zombie projects. You don't even need to add Scrum in there. And it actually comes back to something that happened over 130 years ago. Okay. The Industrial Revolution happened. And at the time, we needed to scale up production of widgets, right? Whatever the heck those widgets were, doesn't matter whether it's cloth, whether I think the picture on the bottom right there is making clocks, top left might be car wheels, or it could be, who knows, right? Stuff with circles. But because we needed to scale up production, people were doing very boring work because we didn't have robots, right? So their brains disconnected from the process. Have you ever done a really boring task? So the thought leader at the time misunderstood people's brains disconnecting from the task, right? So we don't care about the work if we disconnect. And Frederick Winston Taylor, you might have heard the term Taylorism. This is the dude that it comes from. He coined this phrase, and I think it's very important. And you can see it in a way a lot of management practices are today. Hardly a competent worker can be found who does not devote a considerable amount of time to studying just how slowly they can work and still convince their employer that they are going at a good pace. Okay? Think about almost every management practice that you might have encountered. How does it relate to this story, this fundamental distrust of the employee, right? What can we do to enact more control? That's the idea there. And he came up with these kind of 5 things, the scientific management method. We're going to develop standards methods for performing each job. You might have heard the term best practices, right? Standard methods for doing each job. We're going to divide workers into appropriate ability-based groups, right? That's a wordy way of saying departments, right? That's how they manifest today. We're going to have the sales department, the marketing department, the coding department, the testing department, the operations department, right? That's code for that. Legal department, security department, right? And then because we're dividing people into these solo groups, right, where they have one ability, so the screwing the top on the toothpaste tube, or filling the toothpaste tube, or screwing the 4 screws into the clock, right? That's their job. That's the job they do for their whole life. Okay, that's the expectation. We can just train them in standard methods, right? We don't need them to think, right? So we can plan all of their work. And then we can create a bunch of wage incentives for increased output, right? If you work harder, you'll get more money. We're going to give you less money than you need, but if you work hard, you'll get enough. Okay, but only if you work hard. If you don't, we'll fire you because you're just a cog in a machine of resource, right? And we'll get one of the 500 other people that are standing at the door to do your unskilled job, right? That's where those ideas came from, right? So these things are manifestations of that idea, not of having a goal, not stressing strategic direction, not defining ownership for those things, no joy, right? Come from these fundamental ideas. The management practices that most of your organizations are using, and most of them are wedded to, right? They're interconnected with the way they do business, are practices that were designed to manage factory workers 130 years ago. Okay? Taking on work you don't understand, right, is part of that story. Assigning work to individuals, holding them individually accountable, right? Not having a usable increment at the end of every sprint, because in the factory world, the outcome is guaranteed. We want to maximize output. But in the knowledge world, where we're solving problems with our brain, the outcome is not guaranteed, right? So we need to control for outcome. So what are the causes of this zombie Scrum. And I think I was going to have a picture of a zombie biting somebody, but all of them were just awful. So I had to use this even more horrendous picture of this small dictator biting the hand that feeds it. There are a number of causes, right, which were some of them have mentioned already, right? Cause 2, no urgency. A number of people have mentioned that. It was got quite a few votes, right? But homegrown processes, right? Or just, and I've got cult Scrum there, but it could be cult anything, cult safe, cult waterfall, whatever it is, right? If it's not changeable, if we disregard other people's ideas, even other ways, even if they are demonstrably better, because we must operate within our Cthulhu cult, then that's that cult Scrum. So cult, no urgency. Competing values. We don't hold the same things as being important, right? Across our organization, does everybody in your organization hold the same values? What it is we're trying to achieve and why? You know, doing the right thing over doing it fast or just delivering, right, to a particular date. And then cause 4, one of my colleagues who was reviewing my presentation added this one in: seagull training and coaching, right? People just dropping in. If you don't know the term seagull, there's this term seagull consulting. We swoop in, poop everywhere, and then leave. That's the consulting model. So this is seagull training or seagull coaching. Just swooping in, dropping Scrum. You know, you do Scrum training and then you leave. I've done quite a number of those engagements because that's been what the customer wants. But I have seen very mixed value for the organizations in that. So I try and avoid it, right? There's no point in just coming in and doing some Scrum training and leaving because they might not get the value unless it's part of a wider organizational transformation, right? A wider organizational initiative. And then because of that, poor management practices and team design, right? How do you organize your teams? How do you organize your organization? And I think this is very, the distrust and these causes manifest quite readily in this managers in organizations saying everybody needs to come back to the office, right? When that's not necessarily the right thing for every team, for every organization, right? It might be for some teams, fully accept that, right? But for lots of teams, it's not the right thing. And if you impose things that people don't want to do on them, they're going to be less happy, and less happy people do not do good work. Okay. So there's a bunch of, I got this from Barry Overstein, who has a book called Zombie Scrum. And here's the belief, what people believe in zombie Scrum and what healthy Scrum should look like. So this is particularly a Scrum example, but you can see definition of done, and then what can we reasonably do in the moment is what's considered a zombie definition of done, right? What can we reasonably do just now? No, that's not good enough, right? Done should reflect releasable. What do we need to do to be happy and secure that we can release our software to production and protect our brand, our integrity, and our customer safety, right? What do you need to do to get there, right? And there's quite a few items in there, but I'm not going to go into them all. So how do we treat zombie Scrum, right? First off, everybody needs to understand the fundamentals. It's not good enough that people understand the mechanics, the mechanical nature of whatever process it is you've picked, whether that be Scrum or Safe or the Spotify model or whatever the heck else it is, okay? Everybody needs to understand the fundamentals. What is empiricism? Why is it important? And how do we manage risk in an empirical world? Because all product development exists in an empirical world. Okay, so what are the ways we manage risk? Because managing risk with more control does not work. Okay, that's been seen time and time again. I love this, becoming a zombie whisperer. If you're in your organization and you want it to change, you have two choices, right? You can either change your organization or you can change your organization. I know that seems like one choice, but you can either go work somewhere else that does provide you with things you want, or you can help to change your organization from the inside. Right? How are you going to defeat those zombies? You have to convince them. They have to understand what it is they need to do, why it's important to them. The couple of questions above was, why is Scrum important? What value does it provide for the team? Don't be afraid to shake things up, right? Make changes and see if they work. Try stuff, right? Everything that we do in the world is a set of experiments. We have an assumption, right? We need to test those assumptions. We think we'll get more value if we do it a certain way. Try it and see. Monitor the value. Are you getting more, right? So don't be afraid to shake things up, and involve larger Scrum communities or Agile communities. Create them inside your organization. Bring a bunch of like-minded people together. Work together to come up with the ideas because we own them better, and pull in community people from the outside. I work with over 400 trainers at scrum.org, and we all are always helping each other, always working with customers. I'll bring in experts in particular areas or particular topics if I believe it's necessary for customers, if it's going to add more value for them. And I'll bring in those folks as it makes sense. You should be doing that too, you know. And ultimately, I love this little graphic, but you want end users and developers to be talking to each other. Oh, that's behind my head. There we go. End users and developers need to talk to each other to be able to understand what is going on. I can see that I've got 3 minutes left, although I've got 4 minutes written down here. So I'm going to skip my 15% solution because I think we've come up with some ideas. But if I go up to the top here, back to our questions board, to the right of the questions board, you will see I have added some useful material. This is stuff I think might be useful for you. I've got the principles and values of Scrum. It's a big ass poster you can go download. I have a link to the evidence-based management guide, which is how do we measure success in our organization or project, right? So that's how do we measure this thing, the changes that we make. I have obviously the Scrum guide down there. I am a Scrum trainer. I know the Scrum guide inside out. This is my diagram. If you double click, it'll go through to the Scrum guide. And I also have here a link to the Kanban guide for Scrum teams, which I think is very, very important to our ability to demonstrate the flow of value and optimize the flow of value into production. So I would add all of these things together to combat zombie Scrum. And if you are in a state where you have significant zombiness in your teams, in your organization, then maybe this book might help you, right? It has a lot of tools and techniques to help you. Even as I'm a developer on a team and I don't know what I can do, there's lots of tools and techniques in there that can help. So before I leave you with feedback, I'm going to ask some questions, but really, I'm really interested in you providing some feedback. So you can see to the left, let me summon, there we go. To the left of the feedback window for those, the left of the questions window, I have a feedback panel. What worked well? What needs to change? Let me add some, there we go. Add some post-its for you to start off. Unanswered questions and new ideas to try. Please, I've got another conference next week. Feedback is a gift, right? So this is the review at the end of the presentation, and I'd like you to add some things there. So I'm gonna zoom in a bit to the feedback, and then I'll release everybody so that I can go back to the questions, right? So in Mural, you should still be on the feedback wall, and let's see in the, well, there's only 40 seconds, but I'm happy to answer them more in the chat or get on a call later with folks. What would be recommended process in multi-platform teams, web, iOS, Android, which all develop the same product, but not all tasks intersect or have different timelines? Whatever makes sense, right? Whatever creates you with the most value. It's better to have as cross-functional teams as possible. Otherwise, you will get discrepancies between your web, iOS, an Android app and features. You see it in a lot of products out there. So what do you need to do in order to compartmentalize that work and build valuable products? Maybe those platforms have different features. Maybe it makes sense to have an Android stack team, an iOS stack team, and a web stack team. That could make perfect sense, right? You need to figure out for your product, for your world, what makes sense there. It says I have 18 seconds, but I will keep going till I get kicked off. That's what I usually do at conferences. See, as my local timer. Some developers are extremely critical. You need to figure out why they're being critical. What do they feel that they're not getting a benefit from? One of the things that often happens is that the developers do not own the sprint backlog, right? Developers 100% own the sprint backlog. They should own it. It's theirs. They can change it however they like. Nobody tells them how to turn that into working software. That's number one. Okay. The second piece is working software at the end of the sprint. That's our commitment to the customer. Their commitment is we own the sprint. Our commitment to them is we will deliver them something that works at the end of the sprint so that they continue to trust us to do that. So I'm happy to have a conversation outside of this for that. Companies are using Safe. Yeah, they're just buying it. It sucks. Don't use Safe. But if you are in a safe world, make the best of it that you can. So let me just grab. So there's a book to read. Drive by Dan Pink. Dan Pink, Drive. So what are some good arguments for having ownership and autonomy? The good argument is it just works, right? It's what provides our ability to deliver value. Teams that focus on output, right, are forgetting about the outcome. Right? If you're designing brand new products, you need to focus on the outcome, not the output. So Dan Pink's book Drive talks about what motivates us, and it's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Right. So, but read it. There's a YouTube video as well. Go watch that. That should get you there. Again, hit me up if you need more detail. How often should retrospectives be done? As often as you need, but at least every sprint if you're doing Scrum. At the end of every single sprint, every 2 weeks would be awesome, right? Let's inspect and adapt every 2 weeks. For me, it always seemed to start being repetitive and boring. Then whoever's facilitating your retrospectives kind of sucks. They should be exciting and engaging events. I will happily come and help that person figure out how to make your retrospectives more exciting and engaging. But tastycupcake.org has lots of good exercises for that. And I can feel a hook coming to pull me off stage pretty soon. I'm probably getting shouted at. I'm just looking at the backstage. Nobody's shouting at me yet. That's good. How to make team members to speak and actively think at planning, grooming, not only if you ask them. I use a bunch of techniques called liberating structures. I would have demonstrated a bunch of them here if we'd been able to have breakout rooms and stuff, but we didn't really have them here. I'm just putting, here's a link to Liberating Structures. It's not going to do it justice. It's a very dry website, but I have lots of tools and techniques around that for helping engaging large groups of people. And I'm talking as large as you like, pretty much, and getting everybody in. The core technique I would use is something called 1, 2, 4, all, right? Ask people to spend 1 minute on their own writing down a list of ideas for your planning or grooming, right? What's your list of ideas? 2 minutes in pairs in breakout rooms or just in the room, separated out. And then 4 minutes in 4 pairs. Sorry, 2 pairs, so 4 people. And the idea is that your introverts who don't like to talk, and a lot of engineers are introverts, they'll write down some items themselves. Then they'll spend 2 minutes with one other person and make a friend, right? Because they're an introvert, they get one other person to talk to, make a friend, and then they go into 2 pairs. So there's 4 people, both of which have already made a friend. So that's 2 friends coming together and having a conversation, then bring it back to everybody. That really, really helps. Okay. And I'm going to run some sessions pretty soon around that. And I can see that I am 5 minutes over. There are going to be lots of complaints that I'm taking up other people's time. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your engagement in the questions. And please hit me up on LinkedIn. I will put my link in the chat if you want to talk about any more stuff, or you want me to set up any other sessions where we can just all get together the same group and let's dive into one of these stories and talk about it. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to click the end session button as I see there's no other questions, and hopefully this will all work. So let me do that. Yes, I'll finish the current session. There we go. It's closing out. Thank you very much for your time. Please hit me up any way you like, okay? Thank you all.